Hey guys, welcome back to this brand new video. Today I'm going to do a review of the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pro 32 ohm. It's a headset I've been having for years. Now you probably can see that throughout the video, it's a bit worn out. But it's also a good sign because it has been holding up all those years. And I still really like this headphone. So I'll actually go over the 32 ohm first. Then I'm going to talk about some EQ. And later on I'm going to do a comparison between the 32 ohm, 80 ohm and 250 ohm to see which one you should buy. So to see by the end if this headphone is actually something for you. But first guys, if you want, you can go down on this video in the comment section and click on the first comment that I pinned. This will bring you to my Fiverr and here you can get a YouTube logo and banner or a modern minimalist YouTube logo and banner for your YouTube channel. But now back to the video. Okay, so let's jump right in. Now I don't have the box at my disposal. So here you have an older review of mine about the same headphones. I actually show inside of the box. As you can see, you have your guides in there, of course, but you also have like a travel bag where you can put your name, address, phone and email address. It's really nice that they thought of that. I really like that detail. Now there's actually also an adapter. There's also an audio jack but a bigger size that you can actually put on top if you want to, for example, put it into a bigger audio jack female output. Now the cable itself is pretty short, but it can be prolonged with an extension audio jack cable like I have for example here. And of course, once again, be careful with the male to female audio jack size and also how long that cable is. Now I do really like this headphone, especially for one that's like around 150 euros or dollars. It's also pretty light. And I do want to mention on the side, you don't want to just remove the cable. You wouldn't be able to, you're gonna break it. So make sure you open it up and then you can actually change the cable. So don't just rip it out. It's not the kind of headphone where you can just rip out the audio cable. So really do make sure that you look into how to remove the cable properly if you're planning to do so. Now the ear pads are made of leather. Mine are a bit worn out, as I said, throughout the years. It is a good quality though, and they're also pretty comfortable. Now in the summer it can get a bit sweaty after a couple of hours of wearing it and a little bit wearing, but not that much. I mean, I can be wearing these for a couple of hours and don't notice it that much. So the longevity of it is pretty good, I would say, in terms of comfortable wearing. And in case, of course, the pads are also replaceable if that's something you want. Now the outside housing, while it's made out of plastic, is actually pretty strong. And also I have to say the outside noises, so the noise cancellation, if you will, of this headphone is pretty good because it cancels out a lot of noise, a lot of exterior noise. Especially, of course, you put the volume up and you listen to any sound in these headphones. You tend to hear almost nothing in your environment. So if that's something you want, the noise cancelling aspect of this, once again for this price range, is pretty good. And here as you can see on the side, this is made out of a metal and can be adjusted quite easily on both sides to, of course, match the size of your head. And I think this is also pretty well done. I'm actually gonna open it up for you guys up here so that you guys can also see what's going on here. Now this is the same material, it's also metal. And next to that, as you can see, there's a cable. The cables are running through on the top here, from the left side to the right side, and then obviously into the cable underneath. So I like it quite a lot. It's pretty stable. It's pretty clean the way they closed it up, and also the way that it's pretty accessible is also very nice by just unbuttoning a couple of buttons. So I talked earlier on how to change the sound, and so I'm going to show you a way to do here. Now we are going to be using EQ, and for that I'm using Voice Meet Banana here, which is a free software. If you want to get the software, by the way, I have a video up in the right corner here, and I also have a different video up here that explains how to actually set up Voice Meet Banana. But in any case, I'm just going to quickly show you how to set it up here and how to actually use the built-in EQ. Now I like to use my first hardware input as a microphone, but today I won't actually need that. I'm actually going to use a second input here, which I'm going to click right here. I'm going to go make sure it's a WDM here, and I'm going to do cable output here, VB audio virtual cable. You'll see that in the video how to get that. As you can see, that is now considered as an input. What I'm going to go do then is actually go here to A1 and select as an MME this time my speakers right here. So basically my headphones here. And so make sure I can actually remove this one here because I'm not going to use B1. Just make sure that A1 here is selected because it's going to be connected to this A1 as you just saw. Then last sphere down here, once again make sure it's A1 or any other track you're using and select EQ here. And make sure it's blue, that means it's selected. So always make sure that it's at least blue here. And then I can right click here. But I'm first going to show you with a video with some audio here, how it actually affects it. Okay, so I have a video here with some ambient music as an example. Now basically what you have to make sure every time you do this is actually go here in audio, click here, and actually make sure it's on cable input here, so that you can actually hear the sound through the cable input, which once again is our input, and the speakers, so the headphones that I'm using here are going to be my output, where I hear the sound in. Now as you can see, if I play some audio, you just saw it's playing right here. So then as you can see, I'm just going to show you some changes, how you can actually do the volume, for example. You can make it quieter or a bit louder. And you can also, if you want, you can actually go up here. Go up here if I put the sound a bit louder, and you can actually change it, go in the lows, as you can hear, but also in the highs. That's just an example. Now up here, It's going to be like an echoey sound. And then you can actually double click here to reset it. Now what we are specifically interested in here is the EQ, of course. Make sure once again it's blue, and you can actually right click on it to appear. And now even though you don't know a lot about EQ, so even though you don't know anything about EQ, I'm really going to explain you as simple as possible what EQ is. Now basically here we're going to have the lows, mainly going to be here. Here is going to be the mids, and here going to be the highs. In terms of frequencies, in hertz, we're going to basically boost. Boost is when I put it up, and cut is when I bring it down. I will show you that. Now first of all, everything under 100 hertz, generally speaking, I would say isn't that useful, especially if you're doing vocals, because it's going to be background noises, unnecessary bass. But I'm not going to go too much in detail of that. I'm just going to go here and use the second one. It's going to be mainly our bass sounds. So what I'm going to do basically is if I put this up, as you can see, this is what you would call a boost. It's actually, and it goes up, and here I can put specifically where I want it, right here I would say. Then I can actually put it up and down, as I said. Now here we're about 3 dB. So it's a 3 dB boost, so decibel, it's around here. You can see here a little graph. And then here, the last one, what you can do with that is basically make it larger or make it smaller, thinner. So this is going to be more focused on that certain frequency, and this is going to be a broader, so a larger amount of frequencies that the boost will reach. I'm just going to show you with the music itself here. You can hear a slight change here. I can overdo it a bit. As you can see, it's a lot of bass came in, but I can also, on the contrary, cut some bass here. As you can see, it gets way thinner because pretty much anything bass related gets removed here. I'm gonna put volume a bit down here. But basically, if I put this a bit up, let's say like around here, just gonna boost this a bit towards here. Not too much actually, let's just do a little boost here. So if you want, for example, want to bass boost specifically, you can actually put this up by a lot. That really depends on you. I'm actually gonna do something that's a bit more in the highs, but barely. Actually more in the mids towards the highs. So I'm actually gonna put this up a bit here. As you can see, this is more clarity, so if I do this too much, it will get a bit too clear, you know. And here it will get muffled, as you can hear. But you're not always going to hear a world of difference. It really depends on what you're boosting and what you're cutting. Because this, in case you didn't know, was cutting. Basically you reduce the frequencies. So if I want to do, for example, around here. So I take some of the mids as well here and a bit of the highs. Really the starting point of the highs. I make it a bit broader here. And it's actually just really an idea on how you could actually boost a certain sound. Any song really. In case you want to use that. If you want to use the other ones, as I said, 50 here is really gonna be that mumbly bass a bit. You can play around with these, but that really depends on what you're using. Around 800 here is more around the mids. That's really around here, but be careful. Around 300 to 500, just like boxiness. It's like, it sounds boxed and it sounds muffled and muddy. So don't do it too much around here. As I said, really around here is going to be the mids and the highs, which we just saw. This is going to be even higher, from like 4K to 8K to 12K. This is going to be really high, so really thin sound, and 12K is really more to open it up. People usually, I'm going to show you this quickly, will do something like this, for example. And then you can bring it up like this. This creates like openness. Now, of course, not as exaggerated as right here, but it basically creates some openness right here in the sound. So these are different waveforms. You don't have to, if you really, once again, if you don't know a lot about EQ, you don't have to play around with these. These will basically cut a certain point, boost it, and really just start at a certain point or really cut off some frequencies. It's a specific wave here, but you can just really start out with this one here if you don't know that much about EQ. Now, for example, you want to reset, you can just double click here on any of these. If you really just want to reset. And of course you can on and off these, by the way. So there you go, you can then close this. It's really an option in case you want to do some different things with the sounds in these headphones. So that is something that I did want to mention here, because I think it's quite important. Because I know that definitely some of you out there want to do something different with the sounds, and thus with the EQ and the certain frequencies. So do keep this step in mind, it's very important. I also have to say that the sound separation here on the DT770 Pro 32 ohm is pretty good. Like for example, the sound effects in games are pretty distinguishable and pretty clear. So that's basically the sound separation, the multiple layers of sound that you hear within, for example, as I said, a game. And so, of course, needless to say that these headphones are actually good for gaming as well. So now I wanted to go into the comparison part of this video. So I'm going to start with the one that I have, obviously, the 32 ohm. You have to keep in mind that it is low impedance, 32 ohm, it's quite low, and thus it doesn't need a lot of power. So this can actually be put directly into laptop and phones without any problem. And this can also be used actually for mixing music. But you will have to plug it in directly into your laptop, that is definitely advised. And there shouldn't be that much of a difference in sound quality with the 80 ohm and the 250 ohm. Of course, those are going to be slightly better. We aren't that far off. And of course, as I said, it's also good in the low end and in the mid range. Now for the 80 ohm here, you probably guessed it, it's like medium impedance. Now this, although, cannot be plugged immediately into your phone or your laptop. The sound will be too quiet. I've tried this because the first one I actually bought was the 80 ohm Beyerdynamic. And trust me, the sound was way too low. I could have put the volume all the way up, that didn't help anything. The sound still remains pretty low, too low at least, to really use. And that's when I did some research, obviously, and I found out that 80 ohm is too much to directly plug into, as I said, for example, your phone or your laptop. So it will need a sound card to actually function properly at a normal volume. Now I do want to talk about the pads here a little bit. bit. They are more comfortable. It's velour, so they will last a bit longer on your ears than the 32 ohm, for example. Because as I said, throughout the hours, it will remain a bit more comfortable. Now, these headphones are actually used often in the studio, so when you're making music, but also in radio stations and podcasts. You've probably seen them around there. They're pretty popular in that format, and also thus recording instruments, like for example drums. And so it can also be made for making music and mixing it specifically and mastering, but once again using an audio interface. And it has even better low end and a good mid-range than the 32 ohm, but as I said, pretty slightly. And then to finish off here, we have the 250 ohm. Now this is pretty high impedance. Now it's also the same earpads, it's also velour, so it's like the 80 ohm, pretty comfortable. And what is nice with this one actually, it comes with a coiled cable, so it's the one you can actually stretch out, and thus it actually increases the distance you can go of whatever you're walking. Now of course you also definitely will need an audio interface with a pretty higher voltage output, and it's very important to note that you have to make sure that this audio interface in question can also handle the 250 ohm in terms of power, obviously. Now there are quite a lot of them who can, but I'll give you two examples, and do make sure, I really insist on this, to make sure that before buying the 250 ohm, if this one interests you, do make sure that the sound card you plan on using with it can actually, as I said, handle, support the amount of voltage that 250 ohm provides. Now I'm going to give you two examples here. You don't have to buy them per se, but these are just examples. But I do know that they support the 250 ohm. So the first one is the SSL2, it's a sound card, and you also have the Arturia Minifuse 2. These two are pretty known for being able to handle the voltage of the 250 ohm. And so with these two sound cards, you will actually be able to use it without any problem. But these, as I said, are just two examples among many. Or you could, of course, also in this case, if you're using 250 ohm, use a headphone amplifier. You could also look into that if that's something you want. Once again, it's good in the low end, mid-range, but might actually need some cuts in the high end, so in the treble here, because it can get some harshness apparently from the people who have used it. So there might be a little bit of cutting, as I showed you earlier in the EQ, which is when you bring the graph, you bring it down, so a bit of cutting of that certain frequency to avoid getting it too harsh. But obviously it's a good quality. As I said, you can do everything from in the studio to also more of a professional setup in any radio station. Now there you go, guys. I've tried to mention everything there really was to say about, of course, specifically the 32 ohm, but also in the comparison with the 80 ohm and the 250 ohm. I really wanted to give you an idea which one in the series you could consider buying, as once again mine I've had for years and I really enjoy mine. Now of course, don't hesitate if you have any questions to leave them down below. But for the rest, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, would be really nice. Subscribe, also really nice. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.